Okay. Hey guys, it's Liv and welcome to my channel Out of Liv's World. So if you're here watching this video today, it's probably because you've watched my first video where I shared a little bit more about why I decided to leave Singapore. In this video, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into the different visa options that I was considering back when I was still looking for options on how I could get to Australia in the fastest and smoothest way possible. So I have my laptop here with me today just because it is a lot of information and I want to make sure I give you guys, every single thing. But yeah, let's jump right into it. So when I decided I wanted to move to Australia, there are quite a number of visas that Singaporeans could typically look out for. The three main ones would be the skilled independent visa, the employer-sponsored visa, and last, of course, a partner-sponsored visa. So we're going to focus more on the first two today because those are visas that you can easily obtain either through your professional career or by getting an employer to sponsor you. So there are four main visas that fall under these two categories. The first category, the skilled independent visa, has visas number 189, 190, and 491. The second category, the employer-sponsored visa, most people would typically take on the 482, which is the one that I'm currently on. So let's talk about the first three first, the 189, 190, and the 491. All three of these visas are permanent visas. The 189 and 190, once you get approved for the visa, immediately leads to permanent residency. The 491, you start off as a provisional visa, but it also leads to permanent residency quite quickly. So basically what happens is, let's talk about the 189 first. For the 189 specifically, a lot of people coin this as the golden ticket because you don't need any kind of employer sponsor, and the moment the immigration officers call you to grant you the visa, you've pretty much gotten your PR already. Okay, so most people would typically go for the 189. But the 189 is a very interesting visa because it basically runs on what we call is a points tested system. So what that means is that there is a minimum number of points that you need to achieve before you even be considered to get the visa approved. So what happens is you as an individual will be given points according to different criteria. So your level of education is one, your marital status is one, your proficiency in English, any other specific skills you might have from your occupation. So those are just a few examples. So different categories would give you different points, and the minimum number of points you must meet is 65. And most people, when they get caught up for the visa, they're usually sitting around 80 points to 100 points. So it is pretty high. So the 189, you need a minimum of 65 points. You also need to be in a career that is on the list of short-term skills published by the Australian government. So every single year, the Australian government publishes a list of occupations that are in demand in Australia. Most typically, you would see occupations like healthcare workers, teachers, early childhood education workers, engineers, miners. Those are all occupations that are very high in demand in Australia. So whatever occupation you're applying for under the 189, it has to be on this list that the Australian government publishes. Once you get this visa, your stay duration is obviously indefinite because you are automatically considered a permanent resident. You would have full working rights, you have study rights, you have access to Medicare, which is very important. And the visa fee is actually relatively low. It's only $4,640. But you will need to do certain things like proving that you have a competent level of English by doing your either IELTS or any other kind of English test out there. And you are also able to basically live and work anywhere in Australia. So you're not restricted to a certain area in Australia, which is why 189 again is coined as the golden ticket. Once you have it, you can pretty much do anything and everything that you want in Australia. Okay, but again, this one is extremely competitive. Just because your occupation is on the list and just because you hit the minimum of 65 points doesn't automatically guarantee you the visa. So in my personal experience, I previously studied accounting in school. I got my CPA from CPA Australia, and CPA Australia also helped me to do my skills assessment to say that, oh, I am a certified CPA before I could apply for this 189 visa. So I got all my documents ready. I put my name in the talent pool to be called up for the visa, but it's been about 2 years now since I've done that, and they've never once called me up. But it's probably also because I no longer work in an industry that is accounting or finance related, which could possibly affect my chances as well. So the most important thing is, if you are going for the 189 visa, make sure you have sufficient years of experience and you are still working in that same field. Okay? So the second visa, the 190, is very similar to the 189, save for a few differences. The main difference is that the 190 is a state or territory sponsored visa. So that means when you're applying for the 190, you need to go to every single state that you're interested in living in and apply for the visa, or put your name in the talent pool within that state. So maybe I want to live and work in Victoria, so I have to go to the Victorian website and indicate that I'm interested in this visa, and same for any other state. So that is the biggest difference. In terms of the points, everything else pretty much remains the same, and it's also a direct to PR visa, and the cost is the same, the English requirements is the same, but the another biggest difference is that once you have gotten this visa, you must live in whichever state has nominated you. So maybe you decided that you want to put your name in the ring for Victoria, Queensland, and New South Wales. If Queensland decides to nominate you and grant you this 190 visa, you have to live in Queensland for a specific period of time before you can move anywhere else. So those are the key differences between the 189 and the 190. The third one is called 491, which again, quite largely similar to the 189 and 190, except this one is specifically for regional work. So you are again going to be sponsored by a specific state or territory, and it does not lead you directly to a PR visa. You still need you'll be on what we call is a provisional visa before being able to apply for your permanent residency later on. So the main difference, again, it has to be state or territory nominated, and your stay duration is 5 years, but you can apply for PR under the 191 after 3 years. And you have full working rights, but you must live and work in a regional area. So that is the key difference. In terms of cost, again, it's the same, and it is easier. So one of the key benefits of the 491 is that it is easier to qualify or get granted the visa, just because the government is trying to encourage more people to go to regional areas. This means that you won't be living in the city. You will not be in Sydney, you will not be in Melbourne, you will not be in Brisbane, you will not be in the main cities. You will be a little bit more outskirt. So you must live and work in a regional area. Okay, so 491 may or may not be as palatable to a lot of people, simply because most people, when they move to Australia, they might want to live in the bigger cities, so they are not as keen on staying or living in a regional area or rural area. Okay, so those are the three main visas that you can apply independently without having any kind of employer sponsor you. So again, it's the 189, 190, and 491. Now, I know it's a lot of information. I will link every single visa in the description box below so that you can check it out and read the eligibility criteria. Okay, so moving on to the second type of visa, which is the 482. Again, this is the visa that I personally am on. This one is a little bit more straightforward, simply because it is an employer-sponsored visa. So what this means is that you can't apply for this visa on your own. You must find an eligible employer in Australia who's telling the government, say, hey, we really like this employee and we want to take them over to Australia for them to live here and to work for us. So that's what employer-sponsored visa means. So this 482 visa, it's a temporary visa. So the duration that I'm on is currently 2 years, but they've recently changed the rules to extend it to, I believe it's 4 years now. So it's quite a significant period of time. So no pathway to no permanent residency straight away, and you are required to be sponsored by an Australian employer. But the good news is this one has no points. So this means that you don't need to do anything to rack up a certain number of points before you are granted the visa. But it is a short-term visa, and your occupation, or at least the occupation that your employer is sponsoring you, needs to be again on that same occupation list as the other 3 visas that we talked about earlier. And then the stay duration, depending on the occupation, is anywhere between 2 to 4 years. The good news is there is a pathway to permanent residency. Most people, after they finish the number of years on this visa, they can actually apply for a bridging visa called the 186. So the 186, again, is an employer-nominated visa, but once you get this visa, you are a permanent resident of Australia. And then in terms of working rights, of course, you would only be able to work for the employer that sponsored you, whereas for the first 3 visas we talked about, you can pretty much work for anyone and everyone. You can study on this visa if some of you want to study. You have very limited Medicare access, pretty much none actually. So as a person on the 482 visa, I am required to purchase my own private insurance that has been approved by the Australian government. So you can't just buy any private insurance. It has to be on the list of providers by the government. Most companies will offer to pay for the cost of this visa. And so in my case, they paid for it, but they asked me to be bonded to the company for X number of years. So they typically will want to do that so that they make sure you're not, wasting their money, which is understandable. But yeah, so in terms of English requirements, it depends on the job that you're doing. It varies by streams. And the key benefit is this one is, of course, employer-led. Most of your employers would pay for it. No points needed. But the limitations are that you have limited employer mobility. So even if maybe once you get the visa, 3 to 6 months down the road, you're unhappy with your job, you kind of have to suck it up and stay with them, just because you won't be able to move away from the employer unless you manage to find somebody else to sponsor you, which is usually, based on my experience, quite challenging unless you are quite, high up in the hierarchy. But yeah, that's pretty much the 4 main visas that I was exploring when I was trying to move to Australia. So again, personally, I tried applying for the 189, 190 and 491. I never got called up by the government. I managed to convince my employer then to sponsor me and transfer me to the Australian team. So they then put me on the 482 visa. I'm here for 2 years. My visa expires next year. So I'll be hoping that my employer will be able to, of course, extend my visa and then possibly put me on the 186 so that I'm on my pathway to permanent residency. But yeah, as a Singaporean, some key things to note is that because we have a good level of English proficiency, you typically wouldn't need to take any kind of English test. You just need to be able to prove that you did all your tertiary education and had all your, other qualifications in English, which is very easy to prove. Most importantly, you need to be in an occupation that is on that, again, list of skills. I will link it down below. So if your occupation is something that's really, really generic and it's not there, unfortunately, it's going to be very hard for you to move to Australia. You also need to have skills assessments for usually the 189, 190 and 491. So the skills assessment is typically done by an assessing authority that is linked to your occupation. So for me, when I applied for 189, my assessing authority was CPA Australia. So they basically did a check on me and said, okay, this girl, she is a certified accountant. So different occupations will have different authorities being the assessing body for them. And then, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please make sure that you like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next video. See ya!